Welcome to Grit and Gravitas with Ann and Annie, bringing you savvy, spirited stories of success. We're excited to deliver 30 minutes of inspiration, impact, and goodness. We'll be bringing you guests and friends from around the country who have very special work and personal journeys. I'm Ann Deeter Gallaher, your co-host with Annie Carnathan, and this is Grit and Gravitas. Let's go. Annie Carnathan, good to be with you.
Gallaher and Deeter Gallaher. How exciting is this every single time?
Yes, happy High Gear Day.
Happy High Gear Day. No matter where you're listening, when you're listening, thank you for listening, and it is High Gear. So buckle up.
Yes. And a quick intro, wherever you're listening from, we would love you to subscribe and leave a comment, leave a review, and give us some feedback. We're doing this really to help everyone listening to add savvy, spirited stories of success to their day.
It's an incredibly difficult side passion. Thank you, Crystal. Lift.
Yes.
And we want this to be what our ever burgeoning tribe wants it to be. And so let's go. Help us help you.
Yes.
We're going to have more of that in the future of how you can outreach to us directly. But for now, be organic.
Yep.
And tell someone you love how fabulous this is.
Thank you. Great.
For sure.
Okay, so you're leading us off.
I am leading us off, and I want to give out a ginormous Grit and Gravitas hug and love all combined. See what I did there with the G's?
I did.
Ginormous. Has to be ginormous. So we have had an incredible amount of really powerful women that have agreed to spend time with us.
Yes, we have.
It's really humbling. And their stories, you could listen again and again, and you're always going to get something new out of it. So, of course, Amy Murray from the COO of the Pavone Marketing Group, her currency, and beyond anything we could articulate are notes. And so go on vacation, come back, just really tough days, tough days. And they're in the mailbox. In only
in
the cursive that she got, right?
Yes,
exactly.
yes,
the cursive
yes.
that I would, in a different life kill for. So I want to share this with our audience because I want you to understand this is Amy Murray.
And she was episode 6, I want to say.
Early.
Yes.
One of the early adopters. And you just say, we don't really know what this is. And God bless her for just, and
jumping in with us.
And how about that trust and that rapport and that communication? And so the card on the front is, we each have a light. Our adventure is finding which paths to brighten. Okay, she has me at that. My heart swells, opens up. I don't know, we like a whole show of this, but then everybody will know what a softie I am. So inside, Grit and Gravitas is such a light. I am thoroughly enjoying each episode. You are creating such a wonderful space for sharing and learning.
Wow.
2 or 3 sentences. I will now carry this around.
Yeah.
I'm old school with my daily. I'm going to stuff this in there. And it's not just that she gets it. It's not just that this re-energized me, filled me right back up. This is not easy to do. And there's so many people behind the scenes that make it possible to do. And so many people who have contributed and made this an incredible journey.
Right.
And so I want to set the table with this in terms of your phrase, which I absolutely love, for the connection economy. And you and I could both say Amy is a connection.
Totally.
It's sort of like saying restaurants sell hamburgers. Duh. The depth, the extraordinary caliber of her spirit, of what she's accomplished as a woman, what her commitment is to her family as a wife. There are connections, Anne, and then there are connections.
Right.
So there's always varying degrees and levels to that. And so I think with LinkedIn, with social, with anything anyone can appear to be, whatever they want to post, however that looks, it's their story in the way they want to present it. And I'm an old school salesperson. I don't mind saying I'm a salesman. I've earned my entire living, my entire career in sales. And to me, sales is persuasion, moving someone from A to B. I don't think it's a dirty term.
Right.
I don't think it's disingenuous. You know, are there levels of salespeople and their integrity, their honesty? So I would like to examine that today, because inevitably people say, how and why are you successful as a salesperson? And you and I come at this differently.
Yes, we do.
You wouldn't say ever sales, right? But we're all selling. Life is a sales call.
And public relations and marketing, we obviously have a sales component. Our metrics will look differently. Public relations doesn't close deals, where sales would come in and bring the deal to a close. But back to the connection economy, and even it far exceeds the term sales. I mean, it's the way now that we move business forward. It's the way we attract talent in our companies, is those personal connections. And we lost some of it for about 18 months in COVID. And I was thrilled with the Salvation Army. We were one of the first organizations. Well, they never stopped serving in person, at least the core team. But you could see the community distress when you weren't in person. And so bring it back to business. We have a need to make connections with each other. And I contend that it's those personal connections that close deals far more than what a sales sheet will say. It's the actual individual and the power of those connections. And I count you as one of my most special connections.
Right back at you. And to me, and I do sound like a dinosaur in some instances. I'm a dinosaur in my own building in a lot of instances. At the end of the day, though, people buy things from people.
Exactly.
People engage and embrace with people. And I had this really compelling conversation yesterday with just a tremendously high gear woman. And, we're both in sales, but she said, the jumping off point for me, paraphrasing, because I hope to have her on the show at some point, is that if you don't have skin in the game, if you don't have an emotional vulnerability to outreach and say, hey, I'd like for you to consider this because that big bad no is looming, right? And that in and of itself is how I think the rubber meets the road for sales or other, for customer service. Well, I'm a good closer. Well, anybody can sit down at a perfectly prepared meal and eat. That's not a closer. Someone had to get the groceries, cook the meal, set the table. Like, that's the easy part. It's all set up for you. That's a tee shot, right? So my feeling about that, because people ask me all the time, I mean, and when do I stop sort of calling on someone? And what are all these markers? And I will tell anyone that asks, it's how I identify a need. Someone will always react much more quickly to alleviate pain than they will to say, this is going to be so much better. That's overused. Right. It's a lot of false promises. It's really where I think sales gets a bad name. But if I do my homework and I'm consistently looking at that person, I'm saying, you do all these things phenomenally well, but I like what you do, and here's how I think we could help you. I'm identifying what I perceive as a need. At that point, the emotional connection is in that preparation. I don't even know this person. So that's where I had the jumping off point of, well, why is that rejection when they don't know me and I don't know them? They are rejecting the move forward idea of inevitably working together.
Right.
It's okay. How about trust, rapport? If you don't want me to go away permanently, I'm willing to invest in a deeper relationship if you are. No promise at the end.
You're very good at gentle persistence. And I think that probably comes from your long sales background is you don't give up easily. And you keep reminding them that you will bring value, and probably the likability factor is raised every time you come back to ignite that connection. And hopefully, I mean, I know you have several clients where you were gently persistent for a long time, and you've ended up to do phenomenal work together.
3 years.
Yeah.
5 years.
So let's talk about some of the insights and tips, especially for generations that are not, I think I'm technically a boomer, below us, the young people, the 20s and the 30s coming into our employ, or those who we would work with. What are some connection tips for them? Because they have come up on a different path than we have. Like it probably comes naturally for us to seek those connections and find a way to meet in person. So when we're talking to generations that are behind screens all the time, and I love social, and there's many opportunities for us to connect with would-be friends and peers and fellow servant leaders and clients. But let's talk about a couple tips that you would have to give to others. So how do you make that personal connection if it doesn't come naturally to them?
And that's the biggest comfort level to the people in my building.
Right.
And I acknowledge.
And in your building, so they're 20s and 30s, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, getting married during COVID, having babies during COVID. And my point is, the one thing that irks me the most about video anything, I cannot look into someone's eyes.
Right.
And I don't know that it's the window to the soul, but it's the window in. And I'm fascinated by this, right? When you were sort of when I was being scolded, which felt like all the time, it was sort of like, look at me. You got, as a parent, my parents are like, look at me, right? Ooh, that was tough, especially when I was trying to equivocate and get out of something and weasel my way out. And so it's this lost connection for me, that is 100% of my currency.
Yeah.
I take enormous pride in reading a room. I take enormous pride in facial expressions.
You have contagious energy, and that doesn't translate well online. I mean, your comments are fabulous online, but your aura of energy is infectious. So when you are in a room, I'm sure, and that's where the gravitas comes in you, people want to find like, who is that, very smart lady over there, where 3 people are surrounding her talking.
You said this one show, and I didn't forget it, because we have to view ourselves as others view us. It's not our world, it's the world. And when you start to grasp that currency, but you said to me, extraordinarily successful in your own right. You didn't need to do this. You don't need me to be better. And you said to me, you're someone that whatever you do, I want to follow.
Yeah.
And think about that. Think about those kinds of choices every day when you're trying to say to someone, this is why working with me is going to be a really great decision for you. One of the best compliments I've ever gotten, which was probably 2-3 years ago, was brand new to a team, top-down decision, which is tough. But he stood up and he said, hey, everyone, I just want you to know, this may not be the easiest path. There's going to be bumps. You're all learning each other, but let me tell you something. In my entire career, which was more significant than mine, I have never met anybody that cares as much as Annie does.
Yeah.
And I'll melt right now. Like, I get emotional with that, like Amy's card.
Yes, we can see that. You're not going to see that through a LinkedIn conversation. And those are certainly first steps, and not diminishing. I live
important
on the
first steps. Absolutely.
Social channels. But the in-person, whether you're, at an event, whether it's a chamber event, whether it's something you're attending, maybe it's something with Walker's School Scouts as he prepares to launch his Eagle Project, we cannot diminish, and I hope COVID doesn't have any leftover residual in that area. we cannot diminish the power of the in-person connection in a connection economy.
And Mark, our amazing IT engineer for the show, had a meeting yesterday. I'm pretty much back in the office every day, and his team's there. And you walk in, and none of us can manufacture that reaction when you haven't seen people that you love, admire, and respect. I don't care if they're employee. I don't care. I'm gonna leap over that boundary. There aren't any. I love these women. Their moms, their wives, enormous respect, admiration. I can't tell you how overjoyed I was to see them. And it's easy to say to a woman, may I hug you, right? Is it okay? We're like, oh, heck yeah, right? But you have to ask now, right? I mean, it's just a strange world out there. And so my entire point is, if someone's automating sales outreach to me as a president and CEO for my company, it's a computer. So when they say to me, I want to do this for your company, that's the first red flag, because newsflash, that's what we do. That's what we do.
Right.
If I wanted that, and I don't want 30 leads a month, I don't want 10 leads a month. I want the one right person that's Mr. Right for eternity to grow with versus anything. We're not a company that can just do massive amounts of leads. And most of those I wouldn't want. It has to be mutual, right? I'm looking for a marriage, not a date.
Right.
And so it irks me. And then when you don't respond to the computer, they get more and more hostile. That to me is not sales.
No, that lacks any personal,
emotional
connection. Yeah.
Vulnerability.
No,
There's not any in that. It's much more difficult if you say, hey, Annie, here's someone I know and I think they'd like you. And I do outreach and say, everyone knows why I'm doing the outreach. I mean, it's one thing to whistle Dixie and have a good time having coffee, but the main goal ultimately is to see, for me, if we would make good partners.
Right.
If there's something in their business that what I may identify is actually what they need or want, or then what's the situation with who you have.
To your point of, you're looking to who or what company would make a good partner. And there's a chemistry to that decision. We talked, before the episode about the art of doing business. It is an art. It's not a science, and it's not all strategy. So in that partner that you look for and I look for in clients, you want that sort of chemistry, that you want to be around them, you want to go forward and do business with them, and you only know that when you, at some point, you meet them and their team in person.
And I say to people, if I'm referring Deeter Gallaher group, said, here's what I'm going to know for sure, whether I know they can help you. I know they'd be phenomenal partners. But at the end of the day, if that's not the end result, and who knows at this point, because she's evaluating as much as you'd be evaluating. But what I know is you're going to be a better person for having met her, for having that energy.
Well, that's about the highest, honor you could pay me. That's awesome.
Marissa, Monica, this morning I'm driving in and I see, car pulling in and I think it's you. And I'm like gathering all my stuff, right? Because we take over your world headquarters for the day. And I'm waving and like, it's Monica, and it's not. You're like, what? This is like the greatest day ever. And it was the same reaction as I had yesterday for two women that I haven't seen in 18 months that do this amazing work for Universal Media. I mean, would not have an agency without these two, which is all behind the scenes. It's all that sort of gnarly, connecting the dots, make sure, the eggs don't fall and break before we can get them in the bowl to make a nice omelet. It's just this incredible way to either feel that joy or not feel that joy. And so that kind of emotional vulnerability and outreach is what I've always done. But do I have the scars to show for it? I just never really thought no at that point was personal when I didn't know them and they didn't know me.
Well, that's good for you, because I think a lot of people do take that no in a sales outreach personally, whether they've met them in person or not.
100% of, to me, why sales reps, right? And you're talking about media, which in radio is the most difficult thing in the world to sell. And really every month you're starting out again. And so if you can do that, to me, you can do anything. Well, I did it for a really long time and led people doing it for a really long time. And so I do believe the scars are there to show for it. I mean, tell people, I don't know if I've rhinoceros skin. And by the way, I don't have a chip on one shoulder. I have a chip on both shoulders. But how is that going to define me? How is that going to drive me? How is that going to motivate me? And I think when people say, should I quit on this person? I mean, it's as easy to ask, should I stop contacting you? Is this really something you would rather not? I'm fine with that. Like, it's all good. Think you're great, move on. And though, when I meet people, I'm like, oh, I got to be in her life. I have to be in his life. Oh, I'm going to do whatever I can.
That's the power of the personal connection. And I would say to any young person that's coming into the workforce, or a mid-career that's changing careers, or maybe you have worked remotely for a long time and your office has been, your den at home, I would say run, don't walk. To meet people in person for the next meeting, as far as safety protocols are in place, to make that, discover the chemistry, the likability factor, because when those things are high, you find a way to do business. I have had meetings with people where I didn't even really need their service at that time, but I thought I admire them and respect them and appreciate what they said so much. I want to find a way to work with them. Was it in my budget? No.
100%.
Was it in my strategy? No. But they came into my orbit and I thought I will be, like we talked, I will be better working for them. I will learn more working for them. Or I think, and it's really what we do in PR is connecting clients with reporters, specific reporters. When they have the chemistry, they will call me, for every opportunity to say, hey, I've got this lead going. I've got this story going. They remember the enthusiasm and opportunities from an in-person interview. And they will look to do more with us because of that.
You're sticky.
Yeah.
You're emotionally sticky.
It's a day well spent.
That's exactly right. And so my entire... because everything is your perspective and what it means to you. So you can sit there and say, all I got was 50 no's today. Well, then you win. Think about what your mindset would be if the most no's wins. And oh, by the way, the most no's win. It's a numbers game. Yeah. And so, even for our son, at any point, he's a writer. This didn't win. This was rejected. Who do they think they are? This is the best thing. I love that about him because he'll dive in and double down and try more intensely each time. My point to him, this is one person's opinion.
Yeah.
It's one person's opinion. And if you're engaged and if you have a relationship, you should want alternate opinions. I would go mad if everyone agreed with me. Right. I'm already in my head way too much. Somebody needs to right-size me, right? And I value those people. You have to have people that are going to tell you the truth.
Well, and we talked about that in prior episodes.
I mean, in sales, to me, is sort of one person's opinion about whether or not there are going to be these baby steps forward. And, oh, by the way, salespeople have a job. They have a job, and nothing in a connection or any other economy is going to happen until people talk to people and people buy things from people.
Right.
And so, yes, we can automate things, right? Somebody still has to make that can of beans that somebody's going to buy. However you're getting it, someone has to make it and then has to go through that, e-commerce or commerce chain. And so I am never, ever going to be defined by one person's opinion. And you know what? And I said to our son, you got to feel like they're missing out.
Yeah.
I believe they're missing out when they don't want to move forward with me. Right. And you have to believe you're going to be better off not moving forward with them. Easier said than done. But honestly, Ann, after this long, when I'm not going to include you, I have less days ahead of me than I have behind me, it becomes crystal clear to me, right?
Yeah.
How little that ever should have mattered. But I'm able to say that now. That's hard earned in sales. Because I don't ever want to not be in sales because I don't want to meet people. Well, I love meeting people.
Yeah.
And saying, how can I help you? Because I'm a giver.
And I
want to solve things.
We all benefit from the in-person. And that's what I really hope some of our insights for younger men and women is find a way to meet in person. find a way to pitch your idea in person. And you told a quick story of Walker, your son, who is waitering or working at a great little
food runner.
Yes,
Real
food
glamorous, right?
runner.
Yep.
Working at a great little cafe. And his ability, unbelievable connections, especially for what he might think his future career would be, by waiting on people or delivering food to their table, to this nice little restaurant. It's not a big chain. And the connections he's already making and the admiration he's already felt from these, high-ranking businessmen. And he's just there serving. He is doing an act of service. And that's which they would never scroll through Facebook and see any of his posts or Instagram or see links to his writings. But they see him and they immediately want to tell me more about what you do. Like, can you send me a copy of this? And that's the same in Benjamin's world of music entertainment and for artists. He desperately missed the performance aspect, to connect with his crowds, the fans, to perform live music. It's not the same on Facebook Live or even YouTube. When you feel the energy and it's palpable, and when we talk, I look forward to every single meeting. I immediately feel like I'm going to do something really cool the rest of the day. I'm supercharged. I'm pumped because I just spent a couple hours with Annie. So.
And I feel that way. I start every day with a grateful heart, and I was like, what would mean the most to me today to spread to our audience, to make them understand how special we believe this is, and how it needs to be something everyone else hears about. I can't do that any more than through Amy Murray's love for the show and what it meant to me this week. Like, that's something little that's huge.
Well, and that just changed the trajectory of your day. And your outlook, like, oh, wow.
Just talking about it and giving her the love I feel, getting that note. And then yesterday at breakfast with a partner who's as engaged with the show as anyone. And so then you go, I don't know how many people I'd tell this, but why is this happening? Right? It's the energy and the spirit you're putting out into the world. It's always comes back to me. I'm reaping what I sow. And cliches stay around for a reason, but that's the headline. What's my story below that? Because that's what our guests tell us their story. And how I know that I get hurt a lot and I feel hurt a lot, but what then comes out of that is extraordinary. And that's why I continue to get hurt or risk. Yeah. Right? Having my feelings hurt or having whatever is going to happen. And normally that's people that I do have relationships with, obviously not prospects, because I do discern that. I mean, they don't care about me. They weren't waiting by the phone. They don't care that this guy's my bestie, right? Yeah. They don't really care for him that much. Hypothetically, right? And so, but I do rely more and more on the people I care, love, respect, and admire to connect me. Right. Like I'll say, here's what I'm thinking about this. Do you think that would be worth?
Yeah. No, that's
bringing up.
And that's another insight is for listeners to build that little circle of influence that you have where people will be honest with you. I would say if you're a young person in college, even if part of your classes were remote, do not leave campus in your next semester without making sure the president of the university or college or community college or business school or technical school knows who you are. Find a reason to stop in the office, make an appointment, ask some questions, spend 5 minutes in their presence so they connect your name, because they wield an awful lot of power and influence to refer you, to recommend you, to be on your resume. I would say if you're an employee, find a reason to drop a cup of coffee off to your CEO or to your superior and find a very easy way to, hey, just thinking about you today. Thanks for the advice you gave me. Make that personal, visual connection with them.
Which in a just a perfect way is what Amy Murray did. Yeah. And immediately to the 1%. Totally. To the 1% of anyone even thinking about doing that in the consideration. So just like that, we wrapped up another...
And to your sales, bringing it full circle to your sales, the cold selling or the digital leads, find a way to stop in at that business that you're desperately trying to make a connection with.
My business vitamin, you better be able to look them in the eye.
Yep.
Or not much else is going to happen. And I don't mean through a camera.
And mine is find a way to make a connection. Doesn't have to be calculated. Just pop in and say, wanted to meet you in person. It's as simple as honest as that. And that's embedded in our memory. And then that's contagious. And we'll look forward to ways of, making good projects and work together. Moving on.
Well said, and we'll leave it at that.
All right. Happy connection economy, everyone.
High gear.
Thanks for listening. It's our desire that these stories will bring energy, ideas, and fresh thinking that you can use today. Subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Instagram, and have a high gear day.